Welcome to this short learning module on practical measurement. My name is Dr. Nikhit Desai, and I am the Senior Associate Director for Research, Evaluation and Learning at the University of Notre Dame's Global Center for the Development of the Whole Child. At the center, we focus on interdisciplinary research about the learning and development of children in low-resource and fragile contexts. We do this research in partnership with practitioners and researchers from those contexts. And so a lot of the work that we do is focused on making sure that the research and the data that we collect is applicable and usable for those partners in these different countries that we work in. Over the 6 units, we discuss the critical issues that practitioners and researchers should be considering when focusing on measuring the learning and development outcomes for children and adolescents in low-resource and fragile contexts. So to start with, I want you to imagine that you are an educational technical advisor, maybe a monitoring and evaluation officer, or even senior leadership working in a program in a low-resource context. And the program is focused on social and emotional learning for children in about 40 different schools. Now, you want to understand what is changing for these children in terms of their social and emotional learning, but you don't have enough resources to hire a consultant to help with the research or even bring in a university partner. And so you need to do this yourself. So what you end up doing is going online and looking for resources. You find several resources around monitoring these actual outputs or even the outcomes. Things like how many children are in the classroom, how many teachers have been trained, how many social emotional learning books have been given into the classroom. You also find a lot of resources on the evaluation end. Things around rapid or rigorous impact evaluations, maybe even randomized controlled design trials. But while these materials and resources are enlightening, they don't necessarily help you measure the learning and development outcomes of children yourself. So you want a consolidated set of resources in the center to actually focus on your specific needs. This is a conundrum or an issue that a lot of practitioners that I have worked with have come to me with. And so I decided to come up with and consolidate all of these resources within a practical measurement module that is focused specifically on practitioners. So what is practical measurement? Practical measurement is measurement of children and adolescents' learning and development that is driven by and focused on the needs of practitioners working with limited time and resources, primarily in low-resource or fragile contexts. There are 5 main topics that we cover in this practical measurement module. This first is appropriateness, which is focused on whether we're actually defining the things that we want to measure well and appropriately so that we can pick the measures that are going to be useful. The second is utility, whether we've allocated sufficient time, resources, and commitment so that the data that we collect will actually be usable so that we can make decisions. The third and fourth unit focus on feasibility. Feasibility is whether the data that you collect or the process itself is doable for practitioners. And there are 2 parts to feasibility. One is on actual tool selection, whether you decide to adopt a tool, adapt it, or develop your own tool. And the second is on how do you design a process around measuring learning and development of children or adolescents that is actually feasible for a practitioner to do. And the last unit is on rigor, whether the data that we get is actually trustworthy. Is it reliable and valid so that we can make usable decisions about children's learning and development? Now, the materials in this module come primarily from my own experience working over the last decade with practitioners and researchers in low-resource and fragile contexts. But I've also asked several different colleagues over the last several years to review some of these materials so that they're appropriate for practitioners. So I wanted to go through some of the main assumptions I've made in developing this module. The first is that I'm focusing on children's learning and development. I'm an educator. I come from an education background, and so a lot of the research that I do is focused on how children learn and how they develop. But the actual resources that I provide in this module could be useful to practitioners from other sectors as well. The second is I'm going to try as much as I can, I may not be fully successful, but I'll try this, to focus on limited research and technical jargon. Whenever I use a statistical term, I'll make sure I define it for you. The third is the area of measurement is huge. There are entire university courses around this. we can't cover all of that in these short modules. And so what I'm focused on is distilling all of that information into a small package that is clear rather than fully comprehensive for practitioners. The fourth is what I'm focused on is specifically the process of measurement and not the entire study design. There are lots of resources on study design, and what we're focused on here is just on the process of measuring those outcomes for children. The next assumption is that these modules are meant to be self-paced and self-directed. Take them as you see fit, come back to them when you need them. And the last is that you'll find several supporting tools and guidance documents with each video. These are meant to be a distillation of some of the most useful resources that I have found and other practitioners have found in their work. And we'll keep updating these as we move along. So finally, good luck and have fun on this journey of practical measurement.